So, memory is a strange beast. Memories may not be factual, but at the same time, they are true. And memories never seem to be neutral. For very young children, there's two categories: good memories and bad memories. For adults, the range of emotions attached to memories widens. Some memories are upsetting, triggering, bringing to the present a past that has traumatized us. Because of the pain of some of those memories, we may have banished them to an internal safe place where they are no longer free to harm us. Or memories can hold us captive with handcuffs around our hearts and minds. At some point, we have to decide whether or not to let those memories define us or to set them free so that other memories can rise to the fore. Our memories can haunt us, or our memories can be like a soft, snuggly blanket we wrap around us when we need to be reminded of who we are. Sometimes a memory we had is awakened by a smell. Many of you can probably relate to this. Maybe the sea air, mown grass, fall leaves, or that smell in a grandparent's kitchen. For those of us who collect things, the touch of those objects can bring us back to the time, the place, and circumstances under which we acquired or found the object. Or as in my case, certain rocks I have collected over the years bring back not just the place, but the adventures that accompanied my being in that place. These objects can remind us of who we were at a certain time in our lives, and sometimes of who we no longer are. So then the question arises, is one's identity shaped by memories, or are memories shaped by our identities? In an article titled "Messing with Your Mind," the authors state, "Your memories are the end product of all you've ever thought and done, filtered through your perceptions and opinions. Who you are is shaped by your memories, and your memories are shaped by who you are." In my case, I never write about the moment that I am in the way so many who journal do. I write after the fact. While I'm in the moment, I commit to a visual memory and my senses, so that later on I can describe a past moment in a way that I can also take people with me to that spot or time or event so they can see what I saw and feel what I felt. I always thought I had a good memory for those kinds of things. So it was a terrible blow to my heart and psyche to read research that declared eyewitnesses to be unreliable, to read that our memories are fallible. So what follows for me was, if my memory is fallible and my identity is created in large part by my memory, then my identity is flawed or does not hold truth to it. But here's the deal. Memory is not only about the facts that can be corroborated. They hold the emotional truths of our lives. Elizabeth Loftus, a cognitive psychologist and expert on memory, uses two phrases that she borrowed from Tim O'Brien's Vietnam novel, The Things They Carried: happening truth and story truth. Happening truth is the bare facts, what happened at such and such a time. In story truth, it's the story you tell yourself about the truth. the details that you fill in, the technicolor version that helps you make sense of the world. In story truth, you may unconsciously fill in a little bit here, adjust things a little bit there, in the same way that a fiction writer consciously edits and recasts a narrative. The authors of Messing with Your Mind add, your memories are vulnerable to post-event information, facts, ideas, and suggestions that come along after the event has occurred. You can unknowingly integrate this information into your memory, modifying what you believe you saw, you heard, you experienced. Over time, you can integrate post-event information with information you gathered at the time of the event in such a way that you can't tell which details came from where, combining all of this into one seamless. Or as the psychologist Rosalind Cartwright wrote, memory is never a precise duplicate of the original. It is a continuing act of creation. So is there truth to our lives? There is story truth. And the best way that I can describe it is that as we remember or tell the stories that reside in our memories, details or facts may shift or alter. Now, I'm not talking about elaboration to the point of fabrication. The more we recall a memory or tell a story, the more we refine the emotional truth of it. Much the way the pearl is formed in the oyster. A piece of sand slips into the oyster and irritates the oyster. The oyster responds to this irritation by covering it with layers, and I can't pronounce this, N-A-C-R-E-S, nacres, the same substance of its shell. Layer upon layer coat the sand until the pearl, the gem, is formed. The pearl in memory is the emotional truth. And frankly, on our deathbeds, what matters more? The facts of our lives or the emotional truths of them? The late Oliver Sacks wrote, frequently our only truth is narrative truth, the stories we tell each other and ourselves. The stories we continually recategorize and refine. Such subjectivity is built into the very nature of memory and follows from its bases and mechanisms in the human brain. So, as upset as I was about my memories being not valid, therefore my identity and truth not necessarily valid, I decided I better do a little bit more research on this subject. And so here are some things I learned about memory. I'm just going to throw them out there to you. The creation of memory, and all you retired neurologists, you know who I'm looking at right now, can tell me just how off my interpretations are. The creation of memory is the result of a biochemical reaction that takes place inside neurons, particularly the ones responsible for our senses. Don? Okay. Working memory is the kind responsible for creating patterns of recognition and creativity, and it's localized to a few specific areas in the brain. The storage of information in the neurons of our brain happens when there's a certain type of synthesis of certain proteins in a cell. So long-term memory, with its repetition of signals, causes magnesium to be released, which in turn opens the door for the attachment of calcium, which in turn stabilizes the memory. To sum up all of that, memory is a biochemical process. Who knew? Autobiographical memory allows us to reflect and plan for the future and understand we are in the present. If our emotional memories disappear, as happens with Alzheimer's patients, we find a stranger staring back at us in the mirror. I've already talked about the fact that the olfactory nerve links directly to the emotional centers of the limbic system, so the sense of your past can bring you back emotionally charged memories. Memories emerge at the point when they can be linked to a narrative or language. Until the age of 7, children seem to be able to remember very clearly events in their lives. And after that age, those early memories are often lost. And here's an interesting one. Memories formed between the ages of 16 to 25 are remembered more vividly than memories at any other age. Most of us are just lucky that we survived those years, given the fact that our frontal cortexes, which are the ones that kind of help with decision making and responsibility and not making stupid choices, were far from developed. So my response to all this science is, so what? It's nothing personal to all the neurologists in the audience, but it's, if our memories are our identities and our identities shape our memories, who cares about the bare facts happening truth? Why can't we just accept the truth of our story memories? Those memories that are life-sustaining. For like memory, truth is also constructed. There are stories that become memories even if we did not experience them. Let me give you an example. In my family, we had dachshunds, and they all had the same name. Deckel, which is Dachshund in German, at least southern Germany, Teckel in northern Germany. Anyway, in my lifetime, we had Deckel number 1, Deckel number 2, and Deckel number 3. I hardly remember Deckel number 1, except that she was tan, but I do remember the one story my mother told me about her. I remember it as if I had lived it myself. It was Thanksgiving. After the meal, everybody had repaired to the living room, leaving all the food and everything else on the dining room table. You can imagine where this is going. For some reason, my mother went back into the dining room, and this is what she found. Deckel number 1 in the Danish dessert bowl. Now, Danish dessert is a sort of red junket with raspberries and sour cherries in it. The dog was covered in red. Her stomach distended by what she had consumed. So in my family, you are always supposed to tuck your chair back under the table so that no Deckel will jump onto it, and then onto the table, and then carry on with feasting. Mind you, this event happened before I was born. But I can describe the table, the bowl that held the Danish dessert, how the table had been decorated, the tablecloth, the water glasses, the wine glasses. It was not my story, but it became a memory, my memory. And this Thanksgiving, I am going to tell it to my great nieces and nephews so that it will now become a part, I hope, of their memory. In an article in Slate magazine, the author asks us to think of memory as being like orzo. Yes, you heard me right, orzo, the kind of rice pasta. It's not like one big piece of lasagna noodle. Memories are made up of those little bits of information that are coming in literally across the entire cortex. Parts of the brain are taking those little bits of information and knitting them together into something that's going to endure and be a memory. Adults have a fine mesh strainer to catch the orzo. Babies have a big hold colander. The orzo slips through. What's happening with the baby is that a lot of the information is escaping, even as the baby is trying to get it organized and stabilized. In early infancy, a lot of experiences never become memories. They slip away through that colander before they can be preserved. Sharing memories of a person who has died is how we keep them with us. As the lyrics from the song that Katie sang, the way that we will remember them. Once again, if memory is identity, our memories keep that person's identity intact. There will come a time when everyone who knew that person has also died. If those memories didn't get passed down, that person ceases to exist. Each family seems to have one person who is the keeper of the family stories and memories. My advice to you, listen to them before it's too late, before they too die, and ask them questions, a lot of questions, because then those memories also become yours, and they can be passed down, and the generations can keep alive those persons. I'm aware that at this time of year, with all the fall and winter holidays, there can be lots of memories with all the mixed emotions that are attached to them. There are those of us who were fortunate enough to have childhood memories of Halloween and Thanksgiving and solstice and Hanukkah and Christmas that are to this day happy ones. Many of us are attached to those days in ways that have nothing to do with the facts, but are merely sentimental. Just watch on Christmas. Many Unitarian Universalists don't believe in the virgin birth, but you fill this room and you got to sing Silent Night or I'll be crucified. It's called sentimentality. I'm equally aware that for many, the months of November and December can be the loneliest time of year. A time of anxiety about money and pressure and stresses around giving, days so filled with difficult memories that they are to be gotten through, merely survived. Lonely, because we are neither near family or friends, or they may have preceded us in death. Just because some of us love these holidays doesn't mean that others share that love. When I come into a church community as the new church minister, I hear lots of stories. Often the same story from different people. Rarely are they the same account of the same story. Now, I could hear all of those stories and discount them as untruths. Or I could listen on another level and know that there is truth in each one of them. Communities have a story, or many stories. They can create a number of memories. And though there are times when a community needs the so-called facts, that narrative story, what lingers are the emotional truths, the emotional stories, and the emotional memories. These are what we pass down generation to generation. These are what continue to shape a community and culture decades after the events occurred. That's how powerful story and memory is. If you look at many of the world's religions, you will find that most of the sacred texts are not just full of begats and thou shalt nots. They are full of stories. Stories which may not be factual, but serve as teaching stories, as stories that are filtered and refined until there is an emotional or life skill baseline story that remains, the emotional truth of the community, its survival tools. Just like many families or groups of friends, our church community is woven together through the stories we tell and the memories that become embedded individually and collectively. May these stories of insight and inspiration and perseverance, forgiveness, right relationship, nurture, and bread for the journey be yours. I want to close by rereading a section of the call to worship that Sam read earlier. I do not know if the seasons remember their history, or if the days and nights by which we count time remember their own passing. I do not know if the oak tree remembers its planting, or if the pine remembers its slow climb towards sun and stars. I do not know if the squirrel remembers last fall's gathering, or if the blue jay remembers the meaning of snow. I do not know if the air remembers September, or if the night remembers the moon. I do not know if the earth remembers the flowers from last spring, or if the evergreen remembers that it shall stay so. Perhaps that is the reason for our births, to be the memory for creation. May each one of us be the memory of creation in all its facets. May it be so. So be it. Blessed be.